Hi guys, welcome to this new channel. We're going to be learning this Jewish book called the Mishneh Torah, written by Maimonides, the Rambam. And we're going to try and learn about God. So it's all about, right? It's about God. Whether you're Jewish, Orthodox, or you're anything, any human being on the planet. You gotta know why we're here. You gotta know what this is all about. You gotta know what's the meaning of life, what's the meaning of everything. And by understanding a little bit better who is God, what is God, which is a kind of impossible task, because it's paradoxical to understand God, because we can't understand Him. It's completely beyond our comprehension. God is way beyond anything we can understand, but we should definitely try and think about God, and we should try and get an understanding the best way we can as to who and what is God, and what does that mean for us. So, this book, the Mishneh Torah of the Rambam, basically, the Rambam, who lived around 1,000 years ago, cataloged everything, in a nutshell, just everything, as far as just understanding Judaism. That's a lot of laws, just pretty much plug this in here. But which is the laws of Judaism, obviously. He was a Jewish rabbi. But he starts off the whole book, and this is an aleph, that means it's the first part of the series of the books, talking about God. And we're just going to open up, just going to get a start. It's in Hebrew, and I'm also going to try and translate. And we're going to explore it together. I'm no expert, I'm not a rabbi. I've gone through this a long time ago. We're going to do it together. We're going to try and explore it together and see if we come to understandings. It's a little bit hard to understand. You see, this is like the layout of the pages. You have the main, Maimonides in the middle, and then all these guys writing about it on the side. So we'll just try and get the basics. But the main thing here is, and the goal, I guess, of this channel is to help people think about God. And then, what do they think about when they think about God? You'll have these atheists say, well, I don't believe in God. And the truth is, the God they don't believe in, I also don't believe in. They have these funny ideas to who's God. They think that, look, we can prove, evolution. I had a guy recently saying, viruses don't exist because then we can't believe in God. And he didn't mean. The Rambam himself, Maimonides, was a doctor. He believed in the scientific method, very much so. And there is no contradiction whatsoever between science and religion, science and God. But the point is, what does that mean? I don't believe in God. When these atheists say we don't believe in God because of evolution, well, that's nonsense. The Rashi, another of the greatest rabbis who've ever lived, literally describes in Genesis how the creation worked with evolution. So a lot of people claim to not believe in God, but they don't even know who God is to not believe in Him. And so we're going to try and understand a little bit more about God Himself, itself, using words, because that's all we have, and hopefully realizing that the goal of this is to end up with a relationship with God, because every one of you, doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not, doesn't matter anything really, you are invited to have a relationship with God, and we're going to try and understand what that means. You don't even need a go-between. You don't even need any middlemen. You don't need me, that's for sure, to have a relationship with God. So it's very, very early baby steps. Let's see what Maimonides says. This is tricky. This is complicated. This is almost impossible. This is the deepest of all subjects, and I'm not going to do it justice. But I'm going to open up the conversation, and hopefully have you start to think about this. Have God on your mind. Have God as part of your consciousness. The reason I'm starting this channel now is because we're increasingly hearing discussions about AI. And you think, what's AI got to do with anything? And the conversation is, well, guys like Elon Musk say, well, we're going to have a time when there'll be plenty of money, and everyone will have, all the money they need, all the services and goods they need, because everything's going to be so cheap, because there's going to be robots doing basically everything. And the question is, what's everyone going to do? If you don't have a job, which takes up most of your waking hours, so we're all going to just die of boredom. So the Jewish rabbis of the millennia have said that this is a time at the end of times, the times of the Messianic redemption, where consciousness of God is going to increase in the world, and knowledge of the Torah and of God is going to cover the world like the water covers the ocean. So I am trying in my little way to add a little bit more of that God consciousness, God awareness, knowledge, etc. Just putting out my little spark, which is not even my spark. I'm gonna obviously reading from Maimonides here, to just help increase that awareness, so that when you do find yourself bored and lost and just doom scrolling on your phone or whatever it is, whatever social media or platform you're on, and you've seen all the movies on Netflix, and you've watched all the series on whatever platform, and you've gone through every post on Twitter and every video on YouTube, and you're finally like, okay, all right, let's do something meaningful. That's what this is. This is the ultimate in meaningfulness, because this is the meaning of life. This is, God created the world, right? So why? Because God existed before the world. God existed before any of us. God doesn't need us, does it? What does it mean? Why did God create the world? So we're going to try and explore that a little bit. This first section is called Hilchot Yisodei HaTorah, which is basically, in the title itself is telling an interesting Hilchot, Halachot, Halacha, which the basic translation is walking, but it's actually just halacha. So you have mitzvot, you have the commandments. God said, do not kill, do not steal, do not lie. We know, keep the Sabbath. So you have this commandment, keep the Sabbath. But then what does that mean? How do you keep the Sabbath? So it's descriptions and the rules are the halacha, which is, when you need to heat up food on the Sabbath, then this is how you can, and this is how you can't heat up food. And so you have the commandment, and the commandment is a mitzvah. A mitzvah, which is a commandment in English, but commandment is an English word, it doesn't mean anything. But mitzvah is Hebrew, which is the pure spiritual language that God created. And so the words themselves have a deep meaning. So mitzvah is connected to the root tzavta, tzav, and sevet, and those words, the root of those words is about being a team. A tzevet is a team, and so what's a team got to do with it? Because when you do a mitzvah, when you fulfill one of God's commandments, you become a team with God. So when you fulfill a commandment that God gave you, you've taken your free will, because everyone has free will to do whatever they want, and God doesn't just strike you with a bolt of lightning because you did something bad, wrong, incredibly evil. And we see that all around, that's for sure. But you do have free will, and when you choose to, so to speak, nullify your free will, and say, instead of me doing what I want to do, I'm doing what God has asked me to do. I am becoming a team with God, because God says, I need you to do this. I want you to do X, Y, Z. I need you to do that. So what a Jew does, hopefully, is he sees those commandments as a way to connect with God. And he uses the halachot, the rulings, the details, basically, to succeed in actually doing what he has to do. It says, thou shalt not kill. Okay, I'm not killing, I'm connecting to God. Then you realize, also insulting someone in public, embarrassing them, making their face go pale, the blood rushing from their face. That's actually a subcategory, a lower level, or it's kind of an offshoot of thou shalt not kill. Because when you embarrass someone in public, you've spilt their blood in a way, because the blood is drained from their face. And you might think, what's wrong with embarrassing someone in public? Okay, yeah, there's really something wrong with that. It's really bad. If you've ever been embarrassed in public, you'll know that those people will say, wow, he should have just killed me. And there you go. So when we fulfill God's commandments, and we do as God has asked us to do, and we nullify our free will, because I really wanted to insult that guy, and instead we say, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to follow God, and I'm going to not insult the person, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Then in that particular case, we learn from our rabbis that just like the earth is flying in space, held by gravity, spinning around the sun, and there's no one here that can really explain what gravity is, because if you think you can have a stretchy tablecloth and a ball rolling around it, and if that's enough for you to understand how gravity works, then that's amazing. But it's completely beyond any real understanding how these space-time continuum really actually works, and saying it's just like stretchy rubber fabric is utter nonsense. But what's the point of that is that when you keep your mouth shut, Tole Eretz al Blima, David HaMelech, King David said in his Psalms that the earth, the world, is resting, is being held on Blima, on nothingness. And when you keep your mouth shut, instead of insulting a person, you're holding up the entire world. And guess who was holding up the entire world? That's God. So just by keeping your mouth shut, not insulting, especially if someone insults you and you keep your mouth shut and you don't respond, you don't retort, you don't bite the head off, you've held up the entire world. And what greater partner with God could you be? Anyway, we could talk endlessly about lots of stuff. I'm going to try at least, to use this amazing book, this amazing set of Sfarim, to understand a little bit more about God from the incredible teachings of one of the greatest minds to ever live, Maimonides, the Rambam. So the first chapter, Yesod Yesodot V'Amud HaChachamot, the Yesod, which is the root of all the roots, the basis, the Yesodot. Yesodot are what do you call it? Foundations of a building. So the foundation of the foundations, the Amud HaChachamot, and the Amud is the pillar. So he's talking about building, and this is really important because we're really building our understanding of God. And the Amud HaChachamot and the pillar of wisdom, Le'edah, is to know, Sheyesh Sham, that there is there, Matsui Rishon, an initial existence. There is something other than nothing. A Matsui Rishon, a being, a thing that is first. First as in there is nothing prior to God. There is nothing other than God. Because God was first and everything came from God. God created everything. That includes time and space. Time and space themselves are basically illusions that God has created, but they're not illusions because God created them, so they're very real. But everything that we know and think is all being created by God. But God is above beyond, before, all of that, because he's the creator of it all. And this is fundamental. That's what he's saying. It's the foundational understanding of all wisdom. Everything you know, and that you think you know, and that you think anyone else knows, it all has to be based on this understanding that there is this primal being before, above, beyond all other beings. This being that exists beyond time because it's being created, and creates time, beyond space because this being creates space. One of the ways we can try and wrap our minds around it is God created dreams. When we sleep at night, hopefully we have dreams. And when you dream, in your mind, there's a few amazing things that happen. There's space in your dream. You're moving around, you're traveling maybe, but you're in a space in your dream, and there's also time. There's continuation. We know, and you'll surely have experienced that. You could have a dream that feels like it's lasting a very, very long time. There's a whole story that plays out in your dream, but really your dream was extremely short on the clock. You slept for seconds when a dream that felt like it lasted hours or longer. And so we've somehow had this understanding that there's something we don't understand. How could time travel at different speeds? In our head, we can imagine a whole story taking place over hours and hours of different characters and people that weren't there in real life, but we saw them in our dream, different places and different things. But it's all our dream, and all the space and all the time that we imagine in our dream is completely nothing. It's our imagination. So one way to help us understand what this world is we're like a dream of God. We feel like time is happening. There's, looking at our clocks, and there's thousands of years, and it's all moving, and it all seems very real, just like a dream. And, it feels 100% like this is really happening. And there's space. You can travel, you can see the world. But this is nothing in God's mind. I mean, not nothing, but it's basically nothing. Because it's all just a creation of God. Just like Lahavdil, to not compare it because it's totally different, but we at least can use our own dreams to try and understand what that means, what this world is. And when we understand that everything in our life, all the things we think are important, all the people we're trying to impress, all the ways we're trying to make ourselves feel bigger, better, whatever it is, when we realize that I'm just a character in God's dream, and realize, hang on a second, if we really understanding that that's the whole world, is that we are just these tiny little players, these characters in a dream of God, then we realize that the only thing that really matters is God. Because he's the only thing that's real. Everything else is just basically not real. Everything else is fake. So that's the basis of all foundations. Anything at all that doesn't have that as the most basic foundation, any knowledge that is not coming from that point is completely flawed, inherently flawed. Because, sorry, a slight technical difficulty there. So when we first of all base everything in our lives, all our knowledge, awareness, everything about what we know, the science, the philosophy, everything stems from God, and that's all there is, it's going to make life a lot easier. That's what make life a lot better and more meaningful. So when you go to your work, or if you still have it, and you realize that, I'm doing this job, I'm packing widgets or whatever it is, but this is all part of godliness. What's this widget got to do with God? Well, there's a process, there's a flow, there's a reality, there's an existence that's taking place, and my job is part of that reality. I'm doing something that may seem totally insignificant and meaningless, but I'm doing something to perpetuate this reality. And you can actually say, I'm doing something to perpetuate this reality, which in a way is actually partnering with God, because God is the creator of all reality. And I'm, creating chairs, or I don't know what, fixing the road. Doesn't matter. You have to find